Joseph,
And I'm Nick.
and this is Fish Jelly.
Yes, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
Kwanzaa.
And
Well,
all
it's not
that.
Kwanzaa yet, but
Kwanzaa's tomorrow,
yeah.
but that's fine.
Mhm.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. I wanted to start since the Christmas spirit is reminding me that to again say thank you to all of the people who support us financially. It's a very
My employer, my mother. No,
yeah. Well, no, like people sponsor us on Anchor.
I know.
No, well, I'm explaining. People sponsor us on Anchor. So if you don't know, you can go on Anchor and you can give 99 cents a month, which if everyone who listened to us gave us 99 cents a month, I could get that Porsche Taycan I really want. No, actually. And then people, there's the super thanks on YouTube. So whenever I say hit the thanks button, people are hitting the thanks button. And
There's a super thanks button.
when you go on YouTube, there's a button that says thanks, and sometimes it's called super thanks, depending on where you are. And then there's like chat stickers.
Oh.
So people give money. So when we're in the live chat and you see
It's like legendary legends.
Yeah, and then people like have Venmo'd us money. Like, so I'm very appreciative.
Yes.
I'm I think we're both very good with money and frugal. Like we're not extravagant people. And we certainly know the value of a dollar. So
yes.
I know that, for someone to give a dollar means a lot. So
Yes, and I don't online gamble. I don't.
yeah. Oh, that was the other thing. It was recommended to me by someone, and I agreed that we should explain what we do with that money since people are giving it to us.
Yeah, what do you do with that money?
Well, so Fish Jelly is set up as an LLC, so all of that money goes into a business account. It's not just going into our pockets, and we have an accountant who assists us with tax stuff, and so all of it is legit, and that money is used to pay things related to our channel and the podcast. So like pays for internet and cell phone, and like when Nick goes traveling for film festivals and when we go to screenings, and the cost to park and eat, because oftentimes screenings are during dinner time, and equipment such and such, and then saving money because
paying artists for the prints for the
that's right, the graphic design stuff. We're paying for all of that. So, and then the remainder of it sits there because we would like to use it
for a long gestating project.
For a long gestating.
Well, actually, it's in its infancy still.
Still in its infancy, but we would like try to make a film. But yeah, so this money is not just going to me buying, frivolous, unrelated things. But the entire point of that was to just say thank you.
Well, I have a quote for us from Garrison Keeler, who I actually don't like. I think he's a creep, and I hate those stupid shoes he wears. Is he still alive?
He does the
Prairie Home Companion.
Prairie Home Companion, which Lindsay Lohan was in a movie of that, right?
Yeah, Meryl Streep.
And that used to record at the Fitzgerald in St. Paul.
Yeah, and that was Robert Altman's last film before he died. But a lovely thing about Christmas is that it's compulsory, like a thunderstorm, and we all go through it together.
Yeah.
He wrote some nice things sometimes, but I have to double down on I do find him unpleasant.
Oh God! Well, we were trying to keep it positive.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, here we go. Yep. Okay. I have to be
talking about me being negative.
I have to be me. I have to preface that with.
Well, let's move on. I was reading that you also mentioned this to me last week about Edie Falco and filming Avatar: The Way of Water. She filmed that 4 years ago. And this lady was quoted as saying that she thought it had already come out and that it was a flop, and that's why she didn't hear about it.
Edie.
Now, that doesn't make any goddamn sense. You think Avatar 2 came out and flopped and no one... She's like, yeah, I started getting all this like comments about it, and then I realized like, oh, the movie came out.
Oh, so this bitch was mad. She's mad, not invited to premieres.
She sounds mad. How are you gonna say you didn't know Avatar 2 came out? I mean, she is very big. I mean, she works, so it's not like she was just sitting around, but still.
No, she is quite
You're
busy.
In the sequel to one of the largest movies of all time, and you didn't realize it came out.
I mean, that sounds like Carmela Soprano right there.
Yeah, that's shady. So were you following the Tory Lanez Megan Thee Stallion trial at all?
No.
But you know about.
Yes.
So Tory Lanez was convicted for 3 felony charges in respect to the shooting of Megan the Stallion.
Yeah.
So for people who don't know, like, I don't even remember, was it 2 years ago or
Yeah, that sounds right, but
Megan the Stallion and Tory Lanez, who's a Canadian hip hop artist, they were at Kylie Jenner's house in the one of her homes, which this one was in the Hollywood Hills. They were leaving a party, and Megan the Stallion was shot in her foot, and she said Tory Lanez did it. And then it was very vague for a while, like what are the details? Like, this man just shot you in your foot. Apparently, Megan's ex-assistant, along with Megan the Stallion, were in a sexual relationship with Tory Lanez. So they were at this party and things got heated for what, because shit is messy. And he shot her in her damn foot, and he was found guilty of assault with a semi-automatic weapon. My screen just went black. I don't want to misquote these man's charges. He was charged with assault with a semi-automatic handgun, having a loaded and unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and gross negligence in discharging his firearm. So he could get around 20. I think the max is like 22 years in prison and being deported back to Canada.
Well, I mean, that's not the worst part,
but I mean, you shot this lady in her damn foot, which of course makes me think of Harlem Nights.
Oh yes,
when Della Reese got shot in her
pinky toe.
I'm not making light of this woman's pain, but it just seems like it was so messy for a while. Like, what happened?
I know. I don't try to read the tabloid stuff about her because I do really like her. Because ultimately it doesn't matter, and she'll probably write a song about it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and she'll get. In the end, she's the one who is winning.
Yes.
Did you see Sam Jackson was trending on Twitter?
For what?
Do you want to guess why?
Was he talking some bullshit?
No.
Oh.
He didn't realize, or maybe he did, but and maybe a lot of people don't realize this. When you like stuff on Twitter, it's like everyone can see it. So anyone who follows
was he liking some porn shit?
Yes.
Oh, Sammy.
I know. And people were like trying to tag him, like, hey, someone tell Sam that we can see all this hardcore porn he's liking. I didn't want to read the type of porn because I don't need to
tell
know
him
that.
He just needs to follow those people.
Yeah. I mean, you can see who people follow too. So
of course you can, but that's less.
Well, no, because he's famous. So
that's true.
He can't follow them either because everyone.
He needs to have a fake Twitter account.
He needs to have. I don't know what the kids call a fake Twitter, but he needs to have a fake Twitter account. Okay, did you see about like there were some clickbaity headlines about Oprah? The headlines were like she doesn't know how to give a gift under $100.
I believe it.
But that's not true. And I wanted to mention it because I really hate these kind of things because of course I clicked on it. And what it was she was accosted by some TMZ reporter.
Of course.
And they're like, hey, Oprah, I need to get my mom a gift. Like, what would you recommend? So Oprah recommends something off of her favorite things list, which costs $100. And the guy tells Oprah, well, that's too much. I can't afford that. And she's like, oh, $100 is too much. Okay. And he's like, yeah, I can't afford that. And then, of course, that's where they stop it.
I have a book for you. It's called Crafts for Poor People by Amy Sedaris.
But then, of course, the part that isn't highlighted is she very quickly gave him an option that didn't cost anything. He's like, well, because she says, well, if $100 is too much, what you could do is write her a nice card and then include in the card the 10 things you like most about her. And that would also be a lovely gift, which it would be. So I just felt like, and here's the thing. I'm not rich, and there have been times I didn't have money, but I think if you are bold enough to walk up to someone and ask
a rich woman and
ask her what's a good gift for my mother, and she tells you $100 thing, that's not that much money. If you're that concerned and you didn't tell her that it needs to be cheap, and $100 to her is cheap, so
why would you? That's stupid. Go ask Susie Orman then.
Yeah,
if you want to. Buy frugal gifts.
I don't know why I'm so upset about it, but it really annoyed me.
I mean, that shit's annoying.
Don't try to hem Oprah up because then.
But also, it's like, is she in the same league as you? Not that I'm into that kind of rhetoric at all, but it's like this person lives a lifestyle that you cannot imagine.
So why would you think that she would be the best person? Yeah, she comes up with her favorite things list, but that's what it is. It's not her saying this is what the average American should buy. This is her saying these are the 25 things I really like.
These are things she likes. It's her opinion.
But anyway. I just thought of that because it was
Christmas. The only thing I saw about her recently is somebody sent her a very large truffle, like a.
Oh, people thought that was elitist because apparently that truffle cost like $1,800.
Well, it was a gift.
But it was a gift, and also like, and all she ever talks. Even I know. Well, I know I'm an Oprah fan, so I would know this. But she loves truffles. But the thing they're not including is that she's also saying in that video, like, "Oh my gosh, this is so huge. I'm going to share it with everyone I know who loves truffles."
Yes, it's.
So it's like, damn, this lady got this expensive gift that she's saying she wants to share because she loves it and she knows other people love it. And all people want to say is like, she's a billionaire.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of people out here with a lot of money living very extravagant lives.
And doing all kinds of weird shit in the dark. But
And if I were rich, y'all couldn't take me. I would be ridiculous too. So let's not act like. Anyway, did you see? So Brooke Shields has a podcast, and she had what's that? The movie Blue Lagoon.
I've never seen that.
Who's the guy in it?
Oh, I always forget it because I've never seen it. It's not in my head movie.
Yeah, Richard. What is his name? Now I feel stupid.
And there's a sequel.
Anyway, he was on there talking because that guy, Christopher Atkins.
Oh yes, yes. He's in something else I know.
Who directed that? Anyway,
Randall Kleiser, who's gay, who did Grease.
Anyway, he was on her podcast and they were talking about the filming of it and just saying like how crazy it was and how it couldn't be done today and how he was 18 when they filmed that and she was 14 and they had to be naked a lot.
Yes,
and
there was scandal about.
And then
that
Brooke Shields was talking about how uncomfortable it was because she had never seen a penis before. So like now this is like her being confronted with it, like literally on her body because they would be like close, and that she didn't want to look at it because she didn't want that to be like the first penis she saw.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying that the director, because they're on this island, scantily clad or nude, that they needed to have a full tan. So he made them tan naked. They did say they put them in these huts next to each other with a wall so they couldn't see each other, but then they were just like sun tanning. And then they talked about like the animal cruelty that occurred on set because they were like killing like the fish in the water, doing all this crazy shit. And then like people, because of all the bug bites and being exposed, like several crew members had really bad infections. But it just sounds like it was a horrible.
I would watch that, which is funny because there was previous scandal about her in a movie, which of course was Pretty Baby, where she played Susan Sarandon's mother, who is a prostitute in a brothel, and a large portion of the movie is about selling the Brooke Shields' virginity.
Well, I know I saw Blue Lagoon many, many years ago, and if I recall correctly, those two people, like her and the other guy, they're cousins in the movie. Oh. And they have a baby together.
Oh, so this is some VC Andrews Flowers in the Attic shit.
I could be wrong, and I certainly didn't take the time to verify this, but I believe that's the story. Anyway.
Christopher Atkins, he also was in Randall Kleiser's later movie, It's My Party.
Someone sent this to me and asked me what my thoughts were. So MAC Cosmetics has like a Whitney Houston collection to coincide with the movie Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. I don't think we need this. First of all, so it's a collection of like 7 things, one of which is two of which are like one is like eyelashes and the other is like a toiletry bag. But it's like an eyeshadow palette, lip gloss, lipstick, blush. Whitney, this just seems like such a money grab because Whitney is gone and her child is gone. So who's getting this money? Right. The family who leached off of her.
This is no different than splashing Marilyn Monroe's face over a ton of stuff like that as well.
But the worst part about this, just as a beauty professional, Whitney was not known for her makeup. So these palettes don't mean anything. And then
just like everything.
I mean, then look at like inspired by like you're looking at the shop page, but like none of these are reminiscent of her. Like when you look at these 3 women, Whitney Houston does not have a signature face. Like, so I'm just so confused. It just seems like a money grab to go along with this mediocre movie they made of her life. Like, okay.
That's too bad. It's because I like Casey Lemons and I understand why she probably was excited to make this movie and Naomi Ackie, but I don't know. It just seems unnecessary to me.
Yeah. Lastly, someone sent me an episode of a podcast to listen to, and it was about movie trailers. And I actually thought you probably would have enjoyed it, but basically talking about how movie trailers do a disservice to the actual story most of the time and the viewing experience. Like if you go in sort of either because a lot of trailers tell you the entire
I
movie.
agreed, but I've always said that I really will. I'll go out of my way not to watch
Right.
a trailer.
Well, the other thing too is how often do we get exposed to trailers? Because you especially, like you see things at film festivals, you go to screenings, I go to screenings. There are never trailers at those things.
Right.
And then when we watch movies at home, it's usually a screening link. So
Mhm.
of course there are no trailers. So the only time we ever see trailers, that was my trash can. The only time we ever see trailers is when we pay for a movie, which is very rare. Like
Right.
maybe two, three times a year
Right.
do I see trailers.
And
But
then
I
and then there's too many of them. Like, God, half an hour worth of trailers.
but they said so they either give me they either spoil the movie or they set me up for something. How many times have I watched a trailer for something? I'm being a I wasn't fully I do watch trailers, like, when you ask me to watch a movie, I will pull up the trailer just to
Mhm.
get a sense of what it is, and I'm often disappointed, like, they made this look like a thriller,
Oh,
and
yeah,
this
yeah.
is like
I mean, A24 has a problem with that. Yeah.
right, okay, but this podcast went into the history of trailers, and they talked about, like, how Hitchcock and, um, like, Roger Corman, how they used to do trailers, which was the actual filmmaker would talk about the film
Mhm.
and the experience they want you to have. And I thought that is such a brilliant way to sell a movie is have the filmmaker get on screen and talk about the story they're
Oh,
trying
yeah,
to tell.
Hitchcock always in yeah.
I don't know why we stopped doing that. Now trailers are like little movies. Like they're just like the movie I'm about to watch,
Well,
they shrink it down to 2
there's
minutes.
always a concern about how's that trailer gonna be cut to market that.
But as
Uh,
someone who works in marketing and acquisitions, like I know that the entire goal is to get butts and seats or to get people to stream and pay money. So whatever you have to do, but I think that's the sad part of it is like it like artistic integrity takes a back seat to
that's long been the problem in the medium,
which
yeah.
we all know. But
Yeah.
anyway, okay, moving on. So we got a comment slash question, more than one, about our worst of list
Oh,
and
yeah?
how it's not fair that we included like independent and low budget films. We should only be including like bigger budget theatrical releases. And I can kind of see that point of view of like, well, people with less resources would not maybe have the best quality. But then my argument to that is there are a lot of films out there that don't have big budgets that are amazing.
I agree.
And then we just released our best of, and many of those films are not big budget films.
Or foreign. Mhm.
So that I don't think that's an excuse.
I don't yeah, I
Telling
agree.
a story is free.
I
Like
agree.
writing words down
I
is
think we
free.
say that in the worst list. You need to you at the basic level, at the most basic level when you're starting out on this project, where are the writers? Where is the writing? Where is the story?
I will make fun of like crunchy CGI and maybe not having the resources to have proper styling and set production and hair and makeup, but 90% of the time I'm shitting on the story. The
Mhm.
shit was dumb. Like this basic story was dumb. The words that came out of these characters' mouths didn't make any damn sense. So that doesn't cost anything. And many of the movies on our list I felt were like just people who just like the kind of care and concern these filmmakers put into the movie is what we got. Like they
See
just want to
see,
make a
what I
movie.
what I also don't like about that is that it's this politically correct kind of filter, like, we can only go after the big dogs, and it's like, the the sad reality is about, like, Elvis, which I think is crap, and I think Tom Hanks' performance is actually quite terrible, and it's egregiously whitewashed, but there are some things about that film that are quality,
It's beautiful and
and
the soundtrack is great. And I think the main guy did a really good
I
job.
agree, I think his performance is much better than that film, or Bros,
I
like,
didn't like Bros either,
but
but I don't
there
think it's the worst film.
no, and there are a lot of people in the sidelines that I really like and respect and that I thought did the best they could with what they had. And
Right.
the films on our worst list,
There's just nothing about them.
I don't think that much effort was made,
Right. That's what I'm yeah.
even with limited resources.
That's what I'm saying. Like these people put in nothing, like, and then and that's what we get, and I'm supposed to be like, it's okay because it was low budget. Then you
No,
shouldn't have made the film.
no.
If you didn't have the resources and you can't tell a good story.
That's just like saying, uh, holding something to a different set of standards because it's from like a black filmmaker or a woman director or a trans director.
Right.
Like we do a disservice to people by patting their hands or patting whatever that saying is, by saying that,
Well, giving participation awards.
yeah,
Because
no, I don't agree with that. No.
Anyway,
It's also my time. I sat and watched this piece of shit.
well, moving on to films released we didn't cover, something called Living.
Oh yes. I would have gotten to this had we had time, but it's a remake of Akira Kurosawa's Akiru, I think from 1952, starring Bill Nighy, and directed by South African filmmaker Oliver Hermanus, who I know you kind of like because I believe you enjoyed his film Beauty from 2011, that with that kind of a gay movie.
Wait, oh, not the Whitney Houston.
Not the Whitney Houston fan fiction by Dosen Moo.
Oh,
It's
wait,
called
what is the director's name?
Oliver Hermanus.
And it's called Beauty?
Yeah, from
Let me look this up.
2011. Anyway, and the script is penned by Kazuo Ishiguro, who of course is one of the most notable writers ever. From wrote Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go. I saw this out of Sundance and thought it was fine. I'm probably a bigger fan of the Kurosawa's original film, but this has gotten a lot of traction throughout the year, popping up at other festivals like AFI and I'm forgetting where else. But the central performance by Bill Nighy is this kind of civil servant who, unbeknownst to those around him, is dying, has a lot of nice things.
Next, No Bears.
Jafar Panahi, again trying to be an inventive filmmaker while not being able to leave his country. This premiered at Venice this past year and I think won the third place prize. And I overall quite liked it and would recommend it. Joseph's never seen a Jafar Panahi film. I'd probably start with Crimson Gold. But I'd say that's worthy of watching. I didn't even ask you if you wanted to see it, though.
Okay, Women Talking.
I think we can still find time to watch this because it's going to expand theatrically, so it would make sense to review. But Sarah Polley is making her first film since, I think, 2012. She's been writing stuff, but, extremely talented actor turned screenwriter and director. I am a fan of Take This Waltz, especially the little white Michelle Williams performance in that. But Women Talking is a very odd, interesting film, and to me, I think you would have a lot to say about this. But it feels like if the women from M. Night Shyamalan's The Village had lived a couple too many generations in there and realized that this situation is no good for them either. But a fascinating, maybe flawed, but interesting film.
Well, let's take a break.
The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is,
"Thank you for calling. Please listen to your list of 46 possible service options."
Which is why when you choose USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable. 24/7 online service for claims, access to roadside assistance, and more. All at the touch of a button. Start getting the service you deserve. Get a quote today. Ability to receive a quote depends on membership eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliate, San Antonio, Texas.
All right, movies we watched for fun. Something called Where's Papa?
Oh, it's been so nice. Like it felt like a vacation this week because I could actually watch some things I've been wanting to watch. But
because I can't not watch movies all the time.
Well, you have, okay, there are certain expectations of keeping up. But Where's Papa? What year is this? 1970. Carl Reiner film, who, the brother of Rob Reiner. Modern audiences might know him as the senior member in Steven Soderbergh's Ocean's 11 films. He died in 2020. But I think it's not his first film. He's probably best known for directing Steve Martin in The Jerk as a director. But it stars George Segal, Ruth Gordon, Ron Liebman, Trish Van Devere, who used to be married to George C. Scott. Garrett Morris and Arnold Williams have small roles in it. And it's basically about a lawyer who falls in love with a young woman, but his ailing mother, Ruth Gordon, is a little bit batty and hard to deal with, according to him. And he falls in love with this woman that he hires to take care of her, but decides that his love for the woman necessitates him trying to kill his mother.
Next, The Ambulance.
Yeah, I didn't really like it. The Ambulance, Larry Cohen, who is always near and dear to my heart, thinks that It's Alive films and oh God, God Told Me to Kill. Recently, I watched A Return to Salem Lot, which is really bad. But he directed this movie called The Ambulance in 1990, starring Eric Roberts wearing a mane of hair like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon. Red Buttons has kind of a terrible supporting performance, and James Earl Jones is entertaining as a cop. But it's about a young man that flirts with a woman on New York City street. She falls and hits her head. An ambulance is called, but as he searches for her throughout the city hospital, discovers that she has been abducted by some nefarious organizations that's taking diabetics around the city and experimenting on them. It reminded me kind of that mid-90s movie Extreme Measures, but I had fun with it. It is a little crunchy, but Eric Roberts, I think he deserved to have a longer career as a lead performer.
Next, Super Bitch.
Super Bitch. I've had this on Region 2 forever. I think it was released in the US as Mafia Junction, but it's Italian
I
director.
saw the cover. I think I took a picture of it.
You did.
Yeah.
Because I was searching for my Region 2 DVD player in the house, and that was my experiment on it. Massimo Dallamano, who I really like his film What Have You Done to Solange? Starring
Knowles.
No, not
Oh.
well. Yeah, what have you done to Solange? Beyonce, what have you done to Solange? From the early 70s, starring the woman from Solange, who you don't see till the very end, is played by Camille. What's her name from I Spit on Your Grave? This stars Ivan Rasimov and Stephanie Beacham, who people that are fans of Dynasty might know because she was Sable Colby. It is a bit of a mess. It's about this woman that's used to kind of trap notable people, politicians and such, in compromising situations, and then they are used in this elaborate drug trafficking ring. But Patricia Hayes, I kept watching this woman. She's playing Mama the Turk. I'm like, God, I recognize her face. So after it was over, I was like, oh, that's Rozelle from the movie Willow.
Next, Cold Heaven.
I haven't. There are just maybe one or maybe three Nicholas Roeg films I've never seen, and one of them was Cold Heaven, and I have to say I really liked this movie. It is a combination of this. It reminds me of this short story by Kate Chopin, Story of the Hour, mixed with Graham Greene's The End of the Affair. But it's about this woman played by Roeg's wife, Teresa Russell, who I usually don't like in his films, but I thought she was actually fine in this. As a woman who's cheating on her husband, they go to Acapulco. She's about to tell him, and then he gets struck in a waterboating accident and dies while they're in Mexico. She goes back home, and all of a sudden he pops up alive at the same hotel that she was going back to meet her lover at, who's also a doctor. And Mark Harmon is the ex. And then so she has this kind of bizarre religious experience about it. There's a lot going on, but I really liked it. Co-stars Talia Shire as a nun, Julie Carmen, who we just watched in the original Gloria recently and from In the Mouth of Madness, Will Patton, Seymour Cassell. A lot of these people were in TV version of Sweet Bird of Youth that Roeg would do with Elizabeth Taylor. I love the original with Paul Newman and Geraldine Page. I've never seen the Roeg Taylor version, but and it was scripted by Brian Moore, who wrote Alfred Hitchcock's Torn Curtain and wrote I think The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn, which is in a good movie with Maggie Smith and Bob Hoskins.
Next is Traces of Red.
Oh my God. We have to revisit this film, but I need a break. I need a little distance from it because this was fucking terrible. And I remember seeing the VHS cover as a kid and wanting to rent it. And my parents, of course, wouldn't let me. It's directed by Andy Wolk, who I think has only worked in television after this, but starring James Belushi, Lorraine Bracco, Tony Goldwyn, Faye Grant, who Faye Grant, I think you know from the last Omen movie, The Omen 4, who used to be married to Stephen Collins, who I think ended up being a pedophile or something of such nature. But it is this overly complicated, half-baked film noir set in West Palm Beach or something like that. And Lorraine Bracco, who I love, who's kind of fresh off her Goodfellas Oscar nod, who people know as Dr. Melfi from The Sopranos, probably. She is not a good femme fatale, and they made this poor woman be blonde. I mean, this dark complected Italian woman, they give this terrible blonde hair, and she's just not. I don't think she was well directed to be this femme fatale, and there are so many obnoxious plot twists and turns, and James Belushi as this Lothario that all these women are salivating over is not it to me. Uh, yeah. Oh, and she was not double nominated for a Razzie this year for this and Medicine Man with Sean Connery, which I've also never seen.
What is the name of the movie you were an extra in?
Retake.
That's random. Someone just asked me. The next movie is called Buried Alive.
1989, French director Gerard Piquon, probably butchering his last name, probably best known for the Anthony Perkins movie he did right before this, Edge of Sanity. But he directed this odd little movie, which has the misfortune of sharing a title with a TV movie Frank Darabont would only do a year later, starring Jennifer Jason Leigh. But this is starring Donald Pleasance and Robert Vaughn, but I watch it because it is the debut of Nia Long as a character named Fingers.
Was she a lesbian in the movie?
She's not, and she actually has a bigger part than I was expecting, and she does.
I love lesbians.
She does look. I do too. She does look young and beautiful.
Moving on. Something from Tiffany's.
So you watched this with me.
Wait. This one we need to highlight because it was a very pleasant surprise. You put it on.
I put it on
because
a coworker had been telling me about it, and I was like, God, I don't think I received any emails about this movie. It was definitely not on my radar.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Yes.
Something from Tiffany's. I was tired. It was kind of later in the evening. We were in bed.
It was pretty late.
And you put this shit on, and I was thoroughly entertained.
Yeah, you were.
I was howling. I would highly recommend. And you have to watch it with people.
Yes.
Like, get your homegirls together and watch this movie because we would need to take a little time on this one. Because the basic story is the guy from Insecure,
Kendrick Sampson.
He is a creative writing professor at UCLA, and he has convinced his girlfriend, who's like in Hawaii, to travel to New York for Christmas because he has intentions to propose to her
and move back there.
Well, she doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And he's with his daughter, who's kind of annoying.
Yeah, a little too precocious.
Like a little 10-year-old, you think?
Yeah.
Anyway, while he's with his daughter picking up the engagement ring from Tiffany's, he witnesses a guy, Jack Nicholson's son,
Ray Nicholson, who we all know I don't care for,
get into a car accident. And Ray was also leaving Tiffany. So they both have their little blue bags. And of course, this is like a romantic comedy. They switch the bags. So then, as their Christmas gifts, when Ray Nicholson gives...
Who has some amnesia about that night, like while you were sleeping.
When he gives his girlfriend, who's played by...
Zoe Deutsch, daughter of Leah Thompson and Howard Deutsch.
He bought her a pair of like $300 earrings. And when she opens the box, it's like, you know, a $20,000 engagement ring. So he takes that opportunity to say, yeah, will you marry me? And she says yes. And then when old boy gives his girl the box, it's these cheap ass earrings. And she's like, oh, thank you. They're beautiful. And he's like in shock. And this is where the movie gets real good.
But prior to that reveal, Kendrick Sampson and his daughter went to the hospital to look for Ray Nicholson, which is kind of a bit crunchy how that happens. But
yes,
that's where he meets Zoe Deutsch.
The first 20 minutes is a little crunchy. And I was like, I'm not watching this shit. Turn it off. But then when he realizes that his engagement ring is not what's in that box, everything else that follows was... It's one of those movies where you're just screaming at the screen like, I can't believe you're not doing this. I can't believe you're not doing that.
How are we not communicating?
How are we not? I had so much fun watching it. And I have to say, what's that lady's name? The nepotism baby?
Zoe Deutsch.
I thought she was very lovely.
Who's in a nepotism romance with Ray Nicholson. I think she's lovely too. Yeah.
And the guy from Insecure, whose name I keep forgetting.
Kendrick Sampson.
I just thought that they were so lovely together. They seemed to have chemistry.
They had really nice energy. Yeah.
And then I think the way his girlfriend or, you know, fiance was played, it was very well done. It felt very Christmassy. I loved how New York looked.
Yeah.
And it was very low budget, it seemed. I I just thought it was adorable, and
You know what? It reminded me.
I don't want to ruin the ending. I mean, it's pretty predictable, but
It's very, we've seen this time and time. And right off the top of the head, the girlfriend reminds me of Rosie Perez, and It Could Happen to You. Have you ever seen that with Nicolas Cage and Bridget Fonda?
no.
That's a sweet movie.
But yes, if you have Amazon Prime, I think a fun movie to watch with friends is Something from Tiffany's.
And it's based on a book by Melissa Hill, produced by Reese Witherspoon. I don't have any feelings particularly about Zoe Deutsch before this, but actually, I really liked her.
I thought she was adorable. Oh, and then we have to mention her best friend in the movie is played by a woman who I recognized from another movie.
Oh, from Fresh, the best friend from Fresh.
Yeah, this
Joji,
black lady who's playing a lesbian.
yeah.
I thought she added a lot of really nice texture.
Again, it's a good example of how you can take something that's been beaten to death and with, some really good charismatic people, even kind of overcome where they had to cut corners in the script.
I also really love that it's like an interracial relationship, and there is and then you have the black lesbian best friend of the white lady, and I just love that it all felt very seamless.
I believe that they might be friends, and
yes. Yeah.
And I think that's a testament to that actor as well, because I believe that she was this other white lady's friend in Fresh.
Yeah.
But still retain being her. And I had very low expectations. It's directed by Daryl Ween, and I've hated his last couple films I've seen. I absolutely loathed Lola Versus back from 2012. And if I loathe that movie, throw How It Ends under a rock and never drag it out into the light of the day. I hated that movie.
We took something positive and made it negative.
Sorry, okay. but just going to show though, like, you never know.
Moving on, something called The Knack and How to Get It.
This won the Cannes Film Festival in 1965, but I just have never made it. I finally sat and watched it. It is interesting. It's very, very much of its period, but Richard Lester, who we recently did a podcast on, the Ritz. But this was a major film he did, also A Hard Day's Night, the Beatles film. But Rita Tushingham, who's young and lovely in it, and it has since been in many, many things. She's tramping around London looking for the YWCA, and she stumbles upon these two men, one who has the knack, i.e. sex appeal and can get women, and a school teacher who cannot. And the man who thinks he has the knack basically kind of sexually assaults her. And then she spends the rest of the movie just screaming that she's been raped. And it ends up being a lot more light than you would think based on those things. It's very odd.
I'm going to shout out a podcast I listened to because they should have me on once. But I listened to a podcast called The Regular Exclusive, and it's a movie podcast with this man and this woman. And they were talking about the Adult Swim Yule Log movie. Mm-hmm. So it sounded interesting, and I put it on. The premise is very interesting. The film starts with just your typical like holiday Yule log like video. So we just see like this fireplace burning for a minute, and then we start hearing dialogue, and then we see that there's a guy who's rented this cabin in the woods, and he actually films Yule logs. Like that's how he makes money on YouTube. And then shit goes real south. This cabin is under assault by 3 different entities: mm-hmm. a serial killer, mm-hmm. aliens,
yeah,
and like this demonic Yule log spirit.
Yeah,
and it is just a lot. I really applaud the idea of it because it does feel like WTF, but I don't like that it's for the sake of being WTF. But by the 60-minute mark, I was kind of having a hard time staying awake, and then I actually did just leave. I couldn't.
Yeah, I eventually got bored with it because it didn't seem like there was any clincher about why exactly we are dealing with the spirit of this slave woman who murdered her master, and how.
Oh, that's right. Then there's the storyline of
I needed that to be a little bit stronger to
I feel like if you're going to
be dabbling in.
Yeah, I think if you're going to start playing with those kind of plot lines, this shit needs to be a little more elevated.
Yeah.
Because then I'm not making any accusations. I just thought that it was doing a lot.
It's directed by Casper Kelly, who wrote the script for Mandy, starring Nicolas Cage, which I'm a fan of.
That being said, I can see people enjoying this a lot. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely check it out, because within the first like 15 minutes, you'll know if you're into it. Like, it'll pull you in or not. Okay, next, The Blue Caftan.
I missed this at Cannes. It was in the In Certain Regards section this past year, but it is, I think, the second film by Mariam Touzani, and it was just shortlisted for the Oscars. It's Morocco's official submission for Best International Feature. Stars an actress I actually quite like, Lubna Azabal, who, if you haven't seen Denis Villeneuve's Incendie from 2009, highly recommended. But it's about a tailor and his wife who own a shop. She's dying. He's gay, and there's a handsome young man that's working in the shop. And I really liked the male lead as well, Salah Bakri, who was, his biggest film is probably The Band's Visit from 2007.
Okay, next, Some Kind of Wonderful.
After Something from Tiffany's, I was like, I haven't seen Leah Thompson in a minute, and I have very fond memories of her. You do probably from Howard the Duck. I do as
Howard the Duck,
the mom from Dennis the Menace, with Walter Matthau and Joan Plowright. But Some Kind of Wonderful I'd never seen, which is directed by Howard Deutsch, the father of that young woman, starring Eric Stoltz and Mary Stuart Masterson and Leah
my
Thompson.
friend Eric Stoltz, who's from your...
I have an old coworker from Minnesota whose husband's his nephew, I think. But I enjoy Eric Stoltz. But it's funny because Leah Thompson was in Back to the Future, which they filmed portions of, and then he was fired because he was too intense. And that's how Michael J. Fox got it. But it's interesting. It's basically him caught between two women, and it's like they did this to Mary Stuart Masterson in Fried Green Tomatoes and like cut out the queerness of it. But I really read her character as queer, and she gives the best performance in this. But it was, better than I was expecting.
Okay, Heart of Midnight.
This isn't quite as successful, but I really like the bones of it, and I like the vibe of it. But Jennifer Jason Leigh plays this young neurotic woman who hires this decrepit sex club from her creepy uncle, and there's significant demons baked into the walls, not supernaturally, but basically it's revealed that this uncle used to molest her, and there is a young it's a woman playing a young man, but they read as sexually traumatized, and that's why the presentation is such, as living in the walls, and comes out to terrorize her at the end. And then there's a bizarre Peter Coyote thrown into the mix. I don't think it's successful, but again, I think somebody could really remake this and be quite good. I do like Jennifer Jason Leigh. Matthew Chapman directed it. His first film was Hussy, starring Helen Mirren.
All right. So it was recommended more than once that we watch Call Me Miss Cleo, which is a documentary that was on HBO Max.
Yeah.
So we did watch it. I thought it was interesting. For people who don't know, Miss Cleo was this TV personality who was very popular in the 80s and early 90s for doing infomercials. Call me now, this black woman with the Jamaican accent.
The sketchy Jamaican accent, but yeah.
And we find out that, her background is questionable, like in legal documents, because she was involved in a court case involving fraud related to the company that hired her, that she was born in Los Angeles and her parents are all American. So, her background's very questionable. Then we get some history of her back in her early days in San Francisco or in Seattle, and people saying that she didn't have a Jamaican accent, and that character Miss Cleo was actually a character she wrote for a play she was working on. But I had problems with the documentary, mainly because I feel like Miss Cleo herself, I don't think is that compelling. She's part of the pop culture, but I think really what was most interesting is hearing about this company called PRN, the Psychic Readers Network, and how they made hundreds of millions of dollars. I think ultimately they billed like $1 billion in phone charges with these fake ass psychics. And
which were just people hired off the street that basically were told
literally hired off the street,
people on the line, and all these lonely ass people. I mean,
what I wish that what would have been more interesting is hearing from the people who use those and how it affected their finances. I'm sure there are countless stories of people whose relationships suffered, their finances suffered because they were addicted to these phone, like these 900 numbers.
I mean, in 6th grade, I called one of those things being funny with my friends, And then, a month later, the phone bill comes in, and my parents are like, "What the fuck is this?"
So, but Miss Cleo ended up coming out as a lesbian. Her life is still, like, in the documentary, we don't learn a lot about how she lived her life. She ended up in Broward County, Florida. She came out as a lesbian. We hear from a couple of people she dated, but no one really seemed like they knew her that well. And ultimately, she died at the age of, I believe, 53 from colorectal cancer. It is sad seeing her. The footage we get from her,
it's from a 2012 interview.
And then we do see her like in like a little later from like home videos. We have some of her godchildren talking. The part that I didn't like is like the people who are close to her are trying to validate her psychic ability, I think out of respect, and they just come across sounding crazy. Like, damn well the lady wasn't a psychic. That she was not, like, she was faking that accent. But I appreciate them wanting to respect her.
Yes.
And I found it fascinating. So I would recommend it if you know who Miss Cleo is. If you don't, I feel like you would probably, it was kind of, it's also frustrating knowing that, these rich corporate entities that take advantage of people always get away scot-free and unscathed. Meanwhile, her life was destroyed.
Yeah.
And we really don't spend a lot of time. They just say that she was a recluse for 10 plus years. And okay, but that's the part of her life that probably is most interesting is what did she do in those 10 years when she locked herself in a house in Fort Lauderdale?
Right.
How is she making money? So it is lacking, but still very interesting.
Directed by Celia Aniskovich and Jennifer Brea. It has one good edit where the white lady's talking about she always used the same accent when she was in front of me, cutting to that black lady in Seattle who's like, yeah.
I think it's really easy to fool non-black people, but she's like amongst us. We need a little more vetting than that.
Her expression, her face when she's like, she cuts her eyes like.
That's what I needed more of, is like, but then I also appreciate like this woman, her life had value and she was taken advantage of by PRN.
Yes.
So I don't think it should have been shit on her. I think we really should have focused on this corrupt business model.
And also features Raven Simonier and Deborah Wilson, who of course portrayed her in sketches.
Yeah, who are both very colorful people.
Oh yes.
Okay, we need to keep going. We finished season 2 of The White Lotus.
Yes.
What are your overall thoughts?
I probably got into this more than you did.
I liked it.
And then, I think I appreciate Mike White's abilities for characterization. And there's some of it's a little frivolous and tangential with some of the character. I mean, you'll gravitate towards whoever you gravitate towards, but I felt bummed Jennifer Coolidge died because I really enjoyed her again.
Spoiler.
And well, come on now. And Aubrey Plaza, I do also highly enjoy. And I think I spent most of the time wondering if her behavior, if you or I embodied those behaviors more, because I saw a lot of both of us in her character.
Wait, in which character?
Aubrey Plaza.
Well, I think that couple did a good job. Well, I mean, I think anyone can relate. Again, the beauty of these types of narratives is, like you said, you'll gravitate towards someone. I think why I don't love them sometimes is I wish there were more of some and less of others.
Sure.
So the storyline of like the 3 generations of men.
Oh, but I like F. Murray Abraham.
No, I think that like they could have been their own little series.
That's true. Yeah.
Like I wanted more of that. And then with Jennifer Coolidge and her assistant, I feel like I wanted more of that. So it just, every episode I was like, oh, I hope I get this. And then it never really, I enjoyed it. And I will definitely watch season 3. I did enjoy it. I just wanted more of certain things. And then like the prostitutes kind of drove me crazy. I was frustrated by them, but they are a good accent to the.
They're a good accent. The singer was probably, I could have probably done even with less of her.
I really liked the British guy.
The British guy.
The one who's like supposed to be the nephew.
Oh yes, that Haley Lou Richardson is with. Yes.
I didn't like her.
I didn't like her either, but she reminds me of a lot of people. And
Theo James made me uncomfortable for some reason. Well, he's very handsome, but I didn't care for him.
He has a very sinister vibe about him, yeah.
Okay, we need to take a break again. Oh, so much to get through. Okay, projects of interest. Viaje?
Yeah, viaje. What does that mean? Trip? Visit?
Yes.
Alejandro Jodorowsky, the French Chilean filmmaker whose work in the 70s is, fucking great. But he is finally finishing his autobiographical trilogy, which began in 2013 with Dance of Reality and then continued with, what was the next one? Endless Poetry, which I'm fine with. They're kind of Fellini light feeling. He's very old. Uh, it's sad that there were a couple of decades squandered where he wasn't making anything. We covered his Santa Sangre in podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bolero.
Anne Fontaine, the perennial French director, who's a lovely person. I think she probably works too much, but we've also covered a couple of her things. But she is directing a movie about a composer. I'm forgetting his name. Maurice Ravel. Particularly about his piece Bolero.
Lastly, something called The Keep.
Yes, it's a remake. Greg Nicotero, the special effects artist, is remaking The Keep, which is based on a pulp novel by F. Paul Wilson, I believe. Infamously, Michael Mann, his second film was an adaptation of this, which was apparently a mess of a film on every conceivable level, and he's distanced himself completely. I think it's available on streaming. It's about these Nazis discovering something in like the Carpathian Mountains and unleashing a demon. But I think he didn't have all the resources he needed, especially for significant reshoots involving this film. I like Jürgen Prochnow and what's her name, Alberta Watson. It's definitely worth a watch, especially if you're a Michael Mann film. But I think he was able to accomplish something with it, even though it is flawed.
Unfortunately, there are entries in the obituary section. Someone named Mike Hodges.
Fantastic British director who only directed 10 films. But
would I know any?
Get Carter is very famous. It was remade with Sylvester Stallone. I think Michael Caine's the original. Croupier with Clive Owen is also big. My favorite personal film of his is Black Rainbow with Roseanne Arquette and Jason Robards. Highly recommend that film. Prayer Before Dying I watched recently, which I think had his name taken off of. But and I'll Sleep When I'm Dead is also very interesting.
And Sonya Eddy died. Do you know who that is? She's a Black actress. She was on
yes.
I'm going to show you pictures. Can you see these?
Yes, she was just on something we watched.
She's in a lot of stuff, but she's probably best known for she was on 500 plus episodes of General Hospital, but she's in a ton of stuff. She died at the age of 55 from I think I was reading an infection from elective surgery. So that's unfortunate, but
no, she was in something else recent that is not that. Oh, VHS 99.
Okay.
Oh, and she's the nurse in Frank and Penelope.
Oh, that's her?
That's her. She's the one that's...
Which is on our worst of list. Sorry, girl. All right. The secret movie today is... Hold on. I didn't pull it up.
Did you forget the name?
No, I know the name,
okay.
But I like to know...
I make no stats.
Talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Well, you were announcing the title.
Well, yes. So here we go. Mm-hmm. The secret film for today is the 1999 erotic mystery psychological drama film directed, produced, and co-written by Stanley Kubrick, Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes.
Why did you choose this film?
Oh, I've been wanting to rewatch it for years. And there was a screening of it at the Aero Theater this past Thursday, and I asked you to go, and you said we didn't have time. So I'm like, well, we're going to watch it.
Well, this film holds the Guinness World Record for the longest continuous film shoot of 400 days. And it feels like it shot for 400 days. Okay. The movie feels long.
I quite like this film. And as watching it as a full-blown adult, there's so much more that I like about it. But yes, I remember very well when it was filming across 97 to somewhere in 99 about the torturous film shoot, because it's set in New York, but Stanley Kubrick wouldn't travel. So all of this was built in Pinewood Studios. The New York streets we see him walking in were built as a studio in London.
For people who don't know, the basic story revolves around a husband and wife played by Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, who were actually married at the time. And it's sort of a snapshot of their relationship, and we get the sense that they are, going through, gosh, I
What all
mean,
couples go through.
yeah, I mean, yeah, just kind of like not being as engaged with each other romantically, and
Not communicating about
their
thoughts that are being had.
their sexual needs and desires, but they have this beautiful life together. He's a successful doctor. She
Was
has
a gallerist.
and she has a child. They have this beautiful home in New York. So it seems like everything's great, but one night they're talking and Nicole reveals to Tom that she has this fantasy about a naval officer she saw once at a hotel, and that really upsets him. And as he's about to maybe like if he hadn't been interrupted, they might have gotten into a fight. He gets a phone call saying that he needs to go see a patient who has just died.
This conversation was happened because they went to a party where they were both flirting
with
heavily.
other people.
Yeah.
So he goes to this like house call for the dead patient, and things start to get interesting because the dead patient's daughter makes a move on Tom Cruise, like expressing her love for him and kissing him. Then he leaves the house and bumps into a prostitute. He ends up going home with her, but they never actually have sex because he gets interrupted by his wife calling. And then he goes to visit an old med school buddy who's now a pianist,
played by Todd Field, the director of Tar.
And that guy explains to him like, oh yeah, I have a gig later tonight, like at 2 a.m. And Tom is like, I know you're not going to tell me that and not give me the details. Like, what the fuck are you doing at 2 a.m. playing piano? Blindfolded. And he's like, well, there are these parties. So then the night gets real crazy because the pianist says like, well, it's a costume party. You have to wear a mask. You have to have a password. So Tom, we can talk about it. There's an interesting scene where he goes and gets a costume. He shows up at the party and it's like it looks like sort of a sadistic sex party, but isn't, the film's not that wild, but it looks like it. And they find out that Tom Cruise crashed the party. And then the next day is spent with him trying to find out what was happening, but also realizing then the movie becomes kind of a thriller where we think that maybe his life's in danger. But ultimately, he's told, like, we're just an elite group of people who have these sex parties and we don't want anyone to know about it. So you need to keep your mouth shut. And Tom Cruise goes home to his wife and tells her what happens. And then we see them the next day, like on Christmas at the toy store, basically saying, like, we should just consider ourselves lucky
that we survived our adventures.
Even though Nicole's adventures are all in her head and Tom was actually out in these streets.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final line that I didn't like is Nicole tells Tom, you know what we need to do as soon as possible? Fuck. I didn't love this movie. I think it's good. I think it feels edgy. Knowing that, so you read the book that is based on.
Which I've had for years. So I started it last night. It's a novella basically, but I started it last night and finished it this morning. I'm surprised at how much is really kept.
It's from the 1920s.
It's from 1926, Austrian writer Arthur Schnitzler. But of course, in that period, we're using terms like libertines. And
I think the themes relating to relationships, sex, all that are timeless. So for the 1920s, I'm sure this was super edgy. Mm-hmm. For 1999, I can see how people thought this movie was, sensational, especially because of who starred in it.
And again, the audience, for straight people. This is sensational for straight people.
So yeah, I mean, I was kind of sitting there like, okay, but I'm not being cynical. I do think that it is like the story's well done, and I do think that Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman give a good performance. So we don't have a lot of time left, so I'm just gonna go through my notes. At the 22-minute mark, I had said like I'm already tired of seeing Nicole Kidman's ass because we see it like 4 times, I think. But then you made a good point, which is that it's probably supposed to represent how
Tom's tired of it too.
Tom's character is probably tired of seeing her ass.
Bill,
like you mentioned, Todd Field is playing the piano at this Christmas party that the film opens with. So that was interesting.
Which is Sidney Pollack,
So Sidney Pollack is integral because he's kind of like this super rich guy who Tom Cruise is like his personal doctor.
That character's not in the book.
Oh,
actually.
And at one point early on in the film, at the party, Tom Cruise is like interrupted as he's flirting with 2 women to go see. And there's a young lady named Mandy who appears to have overdosed on drugs, and Tom has to kind of get her back in shape.
There's a scene in Babylon much like that too.
And she was having sex with Sidney Pollack's character. You know what bothered me about that scene is, Tom sits with her to make sure she's okay. She finally wakes up, and then he starts telling her like she needs rehab.
Yeah.
And that really bothered me because it's like, how do you know that Sidney Pollack didn't drug and rape this woman?
Right.
Which is probably what did happen. And, I know that's the story, but it was just so frustrating watching him trying to lecture her. And it's like, fool. And then 24 hours later, you're going to be afraid for your life for doing some dumb shit. So I do think it was very effective in making me think like, the overall message of this movie to me is that all it takes is one bad decision to snowball into something that could, affect the course of your life, right? I mean, how many people end up getting a divorce or ending relationships over one stupid decision, like, oh, I kissed this person or I sent this person a nude picture, and it's like one stupid thing that you did that you weren't thinking of, and now everything's over.
Well, and kind of the juxtaposition of your internal versus your internal thoughts versus external actions, because the lines in the Toy Star are taken directly from the end of the book, where she says, just as I'm sure that the reality of one night, let alone that of a whole lifetime, is not the whole truth.
Yeah.
And when he says, and no dream is entirely a dream.
So in that regard, I think it's very well done. And the anxiety that I think Tom's character should feel, I think was very well done. Meaning like, we've all done things or said things that it's like, oh my God, if this person finds out, like, I'm just so scared they're going to find out that this happened. That tension, I think, is very done very effectively with Tom sort of running around trying to figure out like.
Well, and then Kubrick is doing, I think, what he did quite well with The Shining as well. The world, this demi-monde that it's set with, particularly the sex party, feels very much like The Shining to me.
When Nicole's telling Tom about her naval officer fantasy, she's smoked weed, which I think allowed her to be less inhibited. I thought that scene was okay. I liked what she was saying, how she tells him that you trust me because you think as a woman that I don't have basic needs. Like, she's arguing with him and she makes some really good points about like accusing him of wanting to sleep with those women. And then she's using his own logic against him. I thought that the dialogue was very good. I think seeing Nicole trying to be like carefree and loose didn't quite work for me.
Sure.
But
the script, it was co-written by Kubrick and Frederick Raphael, who won an Oscar for the film Darling, starring Julie Christie.
The scene where the dead patient's daughter is like, she is crazy. She is looking at Tom Cruise like she wants to eat him. And then all of a sudden she's like, I love you. I love you.
Yep.
I love you. That, I thought that was very well done because I think, if you're in a relationship and then you get into situations with people that are, it does happen that people get attached to you out of the blue. And it's like, oh my God, I don't even know you. And you're like really into me and you're saying these crazy things to me. So I thought that was a fun moment.
It is, but she's also doing the same thing that really the Kidman character is doing with the naval officer. It's about projection and a projected desire. And I really like how Kubrick does what these kind of repressed women are doing with also the Alan Cumming character.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. So when Tom leaves her, he gets gay bashed. And then after he gets gay bashed, he sees this prostitute, which I think facilitate all the things that are happening to him. His wife telling him about this hot naval officer, him getting
his masculinity. He's been emasculated on the street.
He was lifted up by this crazy lady and then knocked back down. So then he's very receptive to the prostitute. And she takes him back to his place.
Vanessa Shaw, yeah.
Yeah, with her little Charlie Brown Christmas tree at this raggedy ass apartment. Then when he go, so another, I think the one plot point that didn't work for me is Tom Cruise getting the costume, because he goes to this costume shop, which he thought was owned by a previous patient. And it's like after midnight when he shows up and he wakes up the owner and it's not his patient. It's some other guy.
It's a very famous Croatian actor, Radish Srbeja.
And he says, I'll give you $200 over the rental price if you give me this like costume, because he really wants to go to this party. So the guy agrees. And then while he's there looking for a costume, we're interrupted by he has like this underage daughter,
Lily Sobieski.
Lily Sobieski, who's having sex with these two men who look like cross dressers.
Yeah, these two Asian men in drag.
And I thought that was too much.
Sure, but that part is in the book.
Maybe, I mean, it just feels
not
like,
with those details, but yeah.
Because then when Tom goes to return the costume,
he basically says, "You can buy my daughter.
You can buy my underage daughter," and she is very aggressive with Tom. Like when she first meets him the first time, she's like all on him. I don't know that I needed that. I kept thinking Tom carries a lot of cash.
He carries a lot of cash and he has to walk a lot.
But I guess in the late 90s, maybe you had to, if you had money, because I mean,
well, he sure liked to.
There was no Visa debit card. I don't
show
think.
His medical license.
Oh, I wrote down there could be a drinking game for every time Tom shows his doctor card. Like, what kind of card is that?
I'm Dr. Harford. Okay.
Okay, well, here, come in.
I'm a doctor. Tell me this private information.
When we get to the like mansion where these like sex parties are happening, I thought it was funny that you're like, oh, we're at the Home Alone house. At this party, I thought the sex was not very sexy.
No,
I don't think the sex scene, I don't think the sensuality of that is like, does the book feel sexual?
The book is dealing with sexuality, but the orgy at the party is not described in any kind of a certain term.
Oh yeah, see, I don't think it was well done.
Just
in this
how
movie.
beautiful the woman is that warns him.
Yeah, nothing about it was sexy, and then we do see people like engaging in like penetrative sex, and that shit looks so like uncomfortable.
But it looks like it's performative, which is what it looks like.
Well, it does look performative because the two people we see having sex, because all the women are beautiful, but we assume the men are probably rich old men who probably aren't very attractive. But the two men we see having sex, they have very nice bodies. So it made me think like, are these people just watching people have sex and then they go do their own weird shit in private?
This sequence also reminds me of The Wicker Man too, and because you're always wondering like, was Dr. Harford selected to be part of this charade?
Another scene I thought was a little crunchy is when Tom returns home from the sex party, because he's been out all night long and he gets home at like 4 or 5 a.m. As he's coming home, Nicole is having a nightmare about having sex with a bunch of men
and laughing. Yeah.
And then it kind of gave like, I didn't like it because it seemed like, okay, what a coincidence, but are you also trying to give us like supernatural vibes?
Well, I think the problem is too like the juxtaposition. She's being punished for her dream world, right, by his actual actions, and we get to visualize what he does, but she has to relate what she's going through vocally. So it plays in a different way that kind of has a level of inauthenticity to it. But
I think the highlight of the film for me is Alan Cumming.
Oh yeah,
his little 90-second scene, he should have received an Oscar nomination, because I think the way he's looking at Tom Cruise and clearly like lusting over him, it's like perfect.
He wants to drink up his milk. Another thing, the dream in the book obviously is different. It's not about her fucking men. It's she has this very elaborate dream about him being crucified, which enrages him.
Oh God. Then we get like 4 different visuals of Tom imagining Nicole having sex with a naval officer, which I thought felt disruptive. Like it didn't blend well. It was just random like black and white scenes of it didn't send me anywhere. When Tom gets home from that long night of trying to figure, like the next night of trying to figure out what's happening, and the mask, because when he went to the masquerade party, he lost the mask, and when he gets home the mask is on the bed. So it's very ambiguous as to whether or not someone broke into the house and put the mask on his bed, or Nicole found the mask. So I thought it definitely, was a tense moment.
Well, I also like the metaphor of that, of what it's saying. Her husband's mask is what's left behind in bed with her now.
Yeah, that was effective. And lastly, I think the score is like perfect for the movie.
Oh, the score is excellent. And also a specific woman is credited with doing, I think it's basically hymns in reverse at the orgy, because I was responding to that. But Larry Smith was the cinematographer, but Jocelyn Pook is the woman for that apparently created the music.
Well, we only have a few minutes left, but I did want to say I could totally see this being remade. But what I think
It would never be the same.
Well, what I think would be a great update is I would love to see maybe if this were done from the angle of like 4 different people and and then we get more of like the female perspective. So maybe flip it where
Sure,
Nicole's character is able to act out her things and we see her husband in anguish. But I also think it could confront sexuality, gender, like different angles.
I really like what Kubrick did with this kind of update of it, but in kind of uniting Marion, the patient, the woman patient, and Nicole Kidman and Alan Cumming as these beings that have to play these certain games to get their needs met, whereas like men can just, straight white men can just walk around and get whatever they want. And the temper tantrum that he's showing, that this movie is about his temper tantrum is what I think. And she really is literally being punished for having a dream about sex with someone else. I also like that her dream in the scene that we just talked about also gives me Adam and Eve vibes, like because she's talking about shame and kind of like once you go beyond the point of no return, once you eat that fruit of knowledge and experience shame and embarrassment. I just think that there's so much going on with that. I don't know. I think it's very well done. Also, Cate Blanchett's voice is used as the voice of the mysterious woman at the party.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what else would you say about? I almost want The Hills Have Eyes Wide Shut.
The Hills Have Eyes Wide Shut.
What would you give it?
Oh, and also the rainbow things, because there's that talk about we're going to where the rainbow ends, and then the shop where he gets the costume is the rainbow, which is kind of uniting it with some Wizard of Oz themes.
What would you give this movie? 4. I would give it 3.5 out of 5, which means I think it's very good.
But I think that the Edgar Allan Poe quote, "All that we see or see is but a dream within a dream."
Oh, that was the name of one of Britney Spears' tours. The Dream Within a Dream.
Well, she's stealing from Edgar Allan Poe.
What's going on this week?
Well, I was hoping we'd watch Matilda the musical today to cover that, but what?
I don't know anything about Matilda.
You like Lashana Lynch?
I do?
Yeah, from Woman King.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did like her.
She plays Miss Honey, the kindly teacher. That, and I think I'll probably get you to watch White Noise so we can cover that. But I doubt I can get you to watch Broker. But otherwise, it's kind of a quiet week as usually it is. The last. Well,
New Year's Eve, we might do something.
We might.
We might.
Are you going to talk about that yet or no?
Well, we might see Dita Von Teese.
Dita.
But that's only if a friend comes through with tickets. I'm certainly not paying to see Dita Von Teese.
Oh my God.
Not on New Year's. I need VIP roped off shit. I'm not going to be in some standing room only on New Year's.
You didn't talk
Hollywood.
about the Janet Jackson reference in Call Me Miss Cleo, which I'm assuming is why people kept asking us to watch it.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. For the people who said we should watch it, is it because 2 people mention actually I forgot the reference now. What was it?
One of her ex-lovers who is now a trans man.
Oh, one of Miss Cleo's ex-lovers
had never had an interracial relationship before.
And then he goes, well, that's not true. And then he says that he was fixated on Janet Jackson. And then we see the Love Will Never Do Without You, like visuals.
He had a fantasy about her, and apparently Miss Cleo got mad.
And Miss Cleo didn't like that. And then Raven Simone talked about how
she can't be mad at that.
You can't be mad at loving Janet Jackson. So that was a highlight of the documentary. That's all I have. Do you have a final?
No, I did my Edgar Poe.
Well, happy holidays, everyone. Thanks to everyone who have sent nice messages and sent money and gifts. It's really sweet.
And like the headline in that Tom Cruise picks up in the paper, we are lucky to be alive, in bold typeface.
Yeah. Bye.